Now that the tides have settled and things are a bit more calm, I want to take an honest look at Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, the remake games, and what they truly mean for the future of Pokemon remakes, and also generally what they mean for the future of the Pokemon franchise. You see, these remakes will be the first time that a company outside of Game Freak will be developing them. ILCA are best known for their game Code Vein and also have been involved in multiple other projects in the past and present. They are clearly not an unskilled studio and know what they are doing. Now this might not seem like a big deal, but the fact that Game Freak is giving away any level of development and control of their main franchise and their mainline games to a different company is a huge deal, hence why we are seeing Masuda still involved with these projects, because they still don't give them that 100% trust. Hence why these games look also a lot more reminiscent to Pokemon Let's Go than they do to Sword and Shield, as Let's Go was a passion project for Masuda-san. However, personally, I've always wanted Pokemon games to be remade with a bit more pizzazz, with those added elements, those added features, and that feeling of it truly being an upgrade of the experience I felt in the past. For me, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire gave me that exact feeling. I was able to explore those places that I remember visiting as a child while roaming around the Hoenn region, but it was all in 3D and looked far more realistic than the little sprites that kept running around on my screen in the past. It felt like a remake that truly brought out both the nostalgia that I felt for Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, as well as bringing new features and changes to the table that were never there in the originals. Now, this is where the shift is seemingly happening with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. A lot of people hoped and wished the art style of these remakes would be similar to that of Pokemon Sword and Shield, or at least similar to something like Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. But what ILCA and Masuda decided to do was to recreate the exact same graphics of the original games. Now, this in itself is not a bad sentiment or idea, but a lot of people have had an issue with it, and it's kind of justifiable so, since it doesn't really feel like a proper remake the way we've had remakes in the past. If we look at all remakes, they have always been made with a big leap, and with us being in the 3D era of Pokemon now, it feels weird seeing a game we knew was in 2D in the past getting remade, not in the style similar to most of the recent Pokemon entries, that being Sword and Shield, but rather going for a style that's almost backwards in terms of the way it looks like. So looking at all the remakes through Pokemon's history, you can see something very obvious. Each remake entry made sure to add whatever was in its original versions, and we'll go through this in a second, but first I want to bring up why, according to Masuda-san, that Game Freak even started doing remakes, starting with Pokemon Fire and Leaf Green. According to Masuda, one of the main reasons Game Freak started producing remakes was because of Gen 1 and 2 on Game Boy were incapable of connecting and trading with Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. So he says their solution was remaking Gen 1 so fans could catch them all on GBA. Now this is a logical reason and it makes total sense, but it would be impossible for them to use this as a reasoning nowadays, as the remakes and the generations they end up, recreated within are so far gone from each other that trading between them isn't much of a question anymore, especially with existence of Pokemon Bank and Pokemon Home. So why do these remakes exist at all then? Well, the remakes exist because people want remakes, and also remakes sell, nostalgia sells, and allows Game Freak to double dip on something they already created long ago and people already bought. So why not do it? Why not? I mean, personally, I love remakes, and I would love to get remakes for all the games, but the issue is that Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl don't feel as much as remakes, but more as remasters per se. And there's a reason I say this, because when you genuinely look at the game, it doesn't feel like it's being a remake the way it's been done in the past, but rather it's just a remaster, like you getting the exact same game, but it's just slightly more puffed up. Now let me explain this a bit further. Generation 1's Pokemon Red and Blue were remade in Generation 3, and what they did was, when they were remade, was to improve on the graphics drastically from the black and white sprites on the originals. Generation 2's Pokemon Gold and Silver were remade in Generation 4 and also improved on the graphics drastically from those barely colored graphics on the Game Boy Color, but on top of being remakes that looked graphically superior, they also included loads of features and events that were never present in the originals, the Pokeathlon and Battle Frontier as prime examples. These additions, as well as the improved graphics, made the games feel like these larger-than-life remakes that gave you that Generation 2 nostalgia that you might have been craving, but also you got a game that looked just like the mainline games of its own generation. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver looked just like Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. And this is the important part. Same goes for Fire Red and Leaf Green. Those looked exactly like the mainline games of their generation, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Generation 3's Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire were also then remade in Generation 6 and also improved on the original graphics by matching the 3D graphics of the games of the same generation, as they were set within the, Pokemon X and Y era. Basically, they improved on those. If anything, yeah, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire actually improved further upon the graphics beyond the scope of X and Y and what those games did as standalone games. Now let's compare all those games with their originals, their remakes, and the games in the generation they were set within. And then let's have a look at Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl compared to all of them. First we have Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, the original games, and then we have the remakes BDSP, and then of course the generation mainline games they are set within. And do you now see the issue? With every previous remake and every previous case, things were consistent and you got a remake that looked either better or at least similar to the mainline generation games it was being made after. Whereas with Pokemon BDSP or Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, they're nothing alike Pokemon Sword and Shield, the games that came before them in their current generation, instead opting to go for more of an art style that purposely imitates the style and design of the original games. And this is the crux of the issue. People wanted to revisit the games in a more realistic settings, with graphics similar to what the most recent games were that they just played. What you're doing here is going backwards. You're not giving them the future of Pokemon, you're showing them the past after they just tasted what the future looks like. And people will not be happy when they can see what can be done and then just get something that they didn't want. So what you're ending up with here is getting a remake that decides to imitate the style and art of the games it was remaking rather than the generation it was set within. The issue this brings up for a lot of people, even beyond the graphics, is the fear that these games won't offer that other thing which we expect from remakes besides the nostalgia and graphics and all that, which is the added content. And yeah, that is the biggest issue here. The past Pokemon games all made sure to do the extra things of including extra features that fit with the new style of the games being remade. In Pokemon Fire and Leaf Green, you had the addition of a post-game as well as the Seville Islands and whatnot in the games to expand its lore, story, and all that stuff, as well as other additions and small features that made more sense on the Game Boy Advance compared to the original Game Boy. In Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver, there was the addition of things like the Pokewalker that could connect to your game, as well as the introduction of following Pokemon, the Pokeathlon, and loads more that was added into the game that was never there in the past. And with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the addition of the Dex Nav that fit with the 3DS, as well as the addition of Soaring and the Delta episode to add and encapsulate Pokemon Emerald's essence into these games, that was all there. And see, right there, all those games look different and had extra features to fit with their differences. At the core, they were remakes, but they were different enough to give you a reason to buy them. And that's where Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are running into a problem. They're not different enough, they are so similar that it feels like, why should I buy these games? If I'm literally going to get the graphics that look much, that don't look much more different and are just a faithful remake that won't make any changes or additions to give me a reason to buy these games when I can just go then and play my original copy of Diamond and Pearl, why buy them then? That is what the issue for a lot of people lies within. If these games had looked more like Sword and Shield, then far less people would be complaining, as them looking like the games they're set within the same generation as would just make people think, oh, okay, then I can expect improvements on the Sword and Shield formula as well as new features, because that's what every other generation remake did. So now that these remakes aren't doing that, you sort of ask yourself, why should I even buy these games? Because that's the crux of the issue. these games don't look like anything that just happened. They're just going backwards in terms of design. Now, is that a bad thing? Well, it's really up for debate, because again, we've already pointed out some of the issues. The fear of the lack of features and the fact that it doesn't feel like any of the previous remakes. Now, this leads me to my own personal thoughts on this, and I have to say that I will still buy these games, and I have faith that they will include extra things we all enjoy, those extra features and things we enjoy seeing with the introduction of remakes. We already know that a lot of platinum features will be present thanks to details from the trailer, like the Shaman Lady that is in Floaroma Town, as well as the rocks on the belts in the Ouroboros City mines, which in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl didn't have any rocks on them, but in Platinum, they did. And in the trailer for BDSP, we can see them there as well. This proves to me at least that we can expect to see platinum features showing up, and that is great. Now, will we see anything beyond that? Well, to be honest, that is what worries me, because the fact that Game Freak gave this remake to another company means that the value of remakes isn't the same way it used to be in the past. Sure, the remakes still sell very good, but they have clearly decided to go down a different path with things going forward, shifting the way Pokemon is going to work. And I will also say that the decision of showing off Pokemon Legends Arceus alongside BDSP was a strategic move, as they predicted that people would be outraged about BDSP remakes and the fact that a different company decided to take them on. So to soften the blow, they announced both of them, and I think these remakes are going to be more similar to something like last year's Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX, which were sort of one-to-one remakes of the original games Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team, which proves one very important point. Pokemon is no longer the same as it used to be, and it's changing. Remakes will no longer be the big projects they used to be, and I think games like Pokemon Legends Arceus will take those resources, and instead, remakes will keep coming, but other studios like ILCA will be doing those instead. Is this an issue? Honestly, no, I don't think so. And the reason for this is Pokemon Legends Arceus. If it wasn't for this game getting announced, I would probably be alongside a lot of the people out there being outraged and complaining about BDSP. You know, I quite loudly would complain, but because of the existence of Legends Arceus and them wanting to try something else out, what this does is it gives Game Freak more time, more resources to spend on the bigger and better projects, while remakes and other things can be developed by other studios, so we still get Pokemon games non-stop and they can still be fun, we can still enjoy Pokemon, but Game Freak can work on the bigger stuff. And we haven't spoken much on Pokemon Legends Arceus in this video, but it's pretty evident that these games have thrown a wrench into the way we predict and expect Pokemon to do things. We're now getting pre-makes or prequels, which is brand new for this franchise, and these games are clearly going to be totally different from our normal Pokemon games, which means that also our normal Pokemon schedule and way of getting games released will shift drastically as well. Like, things will truly shift massively in the sense of the schedules of the anime, the manga, the TCG, and the merch releases. It will kind of be harder to predict when new generations as well as other things might actually get released. In layman's terms, going forward, Pokemon won't follow the standard new gen, third version remake formula that is done all this time, but instead, we will see a massive change where anything could drop at any given time. And it's clear they have kind of wanted to change things up for a long time, because we have seen this change gradually introduced the last 3 to 4 years so far. With the introduction of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, we got a mainline game that wasn't really a main core RPG Pokemon game, but still a mainline game. And it was a Generation 1 Yellow remake, which was so random since people at that time were waiting to see Generation 4 remakes since they were the logical next ones. And then after that, we had Sword and Shield, which tried new things like a semi-open world area, with the wild area that is, and on top of that, the first ever Pokemon games with DLC, which also spelled the end of the third version Pokemon games like Emerald, Crystal, and Platinum. And now we are seeing another part of this big change. Instead of getting a normal remake like Sword and Shield, we are getting a remake made by a totally different company than Game Freak. A first, and also a Pokemon pre-make or prequel set in an open world. Another first for Pokemon and for Game Freak. You know, this is crazy. We're getting our first ever pre-make, or prequel, whatever you want to call it. But on top of that, we have our first ever open world, fully open world Pokemon game seemingly. This is how these games alongside Legends Arceus are shifting the future of Pokemon, as we can no longer expect them to do things the standard way, but rather being experimental with things. And I think things will get even crazier going forward. Imagine what Pokemon Generation 9 could look like. Like seriously, there are so many options for what they could do and how they could change their approach to game development by not doing the standard, but by making gradual changes. We have seen these changes slowly crop up in the games over the last few years. For example, in Pokemon Sun and Moon, we saw the first time that they actually decided to remove gym leaders and basically add the addition of island challenges and kahunas and all that. And then in Sword and Shield, we saw the addition of gyms. Again, they were returned, but they were changed in a drastic way to make them feel different. But now, instead of seeing small gradual changes, we're seeing large, much larger and more drastic changes and choices being made on a company level, you know what I mean? So it honestly, I can't predict how much this will change Pokemon, but I think what we have learned from the last few years, if we learned anything from the last 5 to 6 years of Pokemon, it's to not expect the expected, but to be ready for drastic changes and choices being made when it comes to these games. So, what all this has led me up to is that if you're worried about Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes, then you know what? You have the full right to be worried, because if I'm honest with you, you will not be getting what you got in the past, and I think that's okay, because the truth is, Pokemon remakes never should have existed to begin with. And if you want nostalgia, then guess what? BDSP are nostalgia. What you really want, if we're gonna be honest, is to see your childhood memories the way you thought it looked like in your head when you were a kid. Because you probably imagine that the world of Sinnoh was this massive and sprawling world, with Pokemon walking around everywhere and everything being majestic and massive, where in reality it was just a cute 2D sprite game that was adorable and loads of fun. So if you want anything beyond that original feeling you had, then don't expect to get it out of these remakes. That feeling of like a majestic, crazy world, but actually seeing it for real. However, if you wanted Pokemon to take a more realistic jump, then you're lucky, because you're gonna get that with Pokemon Legends Arceus. Because that game is clearly aiming to satisfy those hardcore fans that will always want a Pokemon to be more realistic, more large, and just overall want a Pokemon to take that jump into open worlds and larger scale worlds and better graphics. Pokemon lagged behind, and guess what? That is not the case anymore. Pokemon Legends Arceus is finally that moment. We are finally jumping forward. We're finally going to get that next generation, that next gen Pokemon game, And they are doing all the things we asked for. They've stopped forcing Generation 1 on us. They're not doing that. Give Pokemon games to other studios is something they also are doing now, so they can develop bigger projects. They're doing that, and they've just given the games more time for development. That's also something we asked for. And clearly, with Pokemon Legends Arceus, if you think about it, these games are going to have 3 starter Pokemon that have nothing to do with Kanto. We have Rowlet, Cyndaquil, and Oshawott, for crying out loud. Those are all from fan-favorite regions that don't get enough love and are totally different from what some might have expected. They're doing all these things they should be doing. They're stopping the franchise from stagnating by pushing out the same thing over and over again, and instead of trying something different. And I think it's important that we support both Pokemon Legends Arceus as well as Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, so that ILCA, Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, and Nintendo all know that we want them to try new things out and change up their approach. We have to support them trying new things rather than bashing it. I mean, think about it. If Pokemon Legends Arceus underperforms in comparison to Pokemon Sword and Shield, that could signal the wrong thing to Game Freak and Nintendo, that we then prefer games like Sword and Shield, which I'm going to be honest with you and tell you right now. No, we don't. I think most of us would prefer an open world game in the style of Legends Arceus that's far more unique than whatever Sword and Shield was. And for that reason, I think we have to support them in this situation. So as a conclusion, how this shifts Pokemon future and how it has changed the franchise going forward forever is massive. From now on, we can't expect remakes to do what they used to do. We can't predict the decisions of the developers or who is going to develop each game going forward. We don't know what to expect for Generation 9, and we don't know what to expect from the remakes or anything anymore, leaving us in a situation where Pokemon honestly has been the most exciting in basically ever. The franchise is finally feeling fresh again. It's like moving several steps forward rather than the usual 1 step forward and 3 step backwards that we've had in the past with the games. So I'm just going to stay hopeful and ready for Pokemon in the years going forward, because I think we are in the golden age again. the age we had back in the past with, you know, generation 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as 5. I think we're back in that golden era again, and hopefully Pokemon going forward is going to be fantastic.